I would like to do a little experiment to try and revolutionize the way that I read using focus tips from you guys. We'll see how much I can read in like a 2-hour back-to-back 2-hour period every single day. I genuinely did not think that I was going to beat yesterday. I've only gone and done it again. Honestly, I don't anticipate this being a super comfortable situation for me. I hate an audiobook that essentially just reads the book, like perform the book for me, please. I felt like a superhero. Hello my guys, welcome to a new reading vlog, and this one is going to be a little bit different, quite a lot different actually, because I want to try something this week because guys, I'm tired. I am tired of constantly feeling like I'm working against myself, constantly falling behind on my reading, constantly feeling like I'm wasting time in the middle of my day where I could be progressing with my current read. And I know that I lack focus. I've known this for a while. I know that part of this is because of anxiety, part of it is because I overwork mentally in terms of I always have a to-do list running through my brain. It doesn't help that like I'm obviously an adult, I have responsibilities, I have things that I need to do, but I need to be able to make that part of my brain be quiet sometimes as well. And then I also know that it's partially because we live in an age where we are constantly receiving stimulation, so it's really hard to kind of strip that back and remove the stimulation to only really be focusing on one thing. I do really feel like my attention span has waned over the years. I used to play a lot of video games and I used to lock in for hours, and I simply cannot do that anymore. And I really want to knock this on the head, because reading, aside from being something that I enjoy and the fact that I used to be somebody who was able to read a lot all at once, like reading is also a huge part of my job. So being able to do that effectively is incredibly important to me. And my inability to do so is also counterproductive to this like overworking, always on the go mindset that I often find myself falling into anyway. But it is the start of a new season, and actually my favorite season at that. So we are going to be trying to make a positive change this week, because I would like to do a little experiment to try and revolutionize the way that I read to help me become a more focused and productive reader using focus tips from you guys. So last week on Instagram, I asked you guys, how do you lock in and read? Like, if you know that you want to make a significant dent in your book this afternoon, whether you want to read like 200 pages or just as much as you possibly can in the time that you have available, how do you set yourself up for success? How do you put yourself into the mindset to make that happen and be as focused as possible? Not in a super strict, disciplined way where you're forcing yourself to do something, but in a way where you're obviously still enjoying it, but just without distractions and an ability to actually get lost in that book. And I do know that the book choice obviously plays a role into it, but aside from that, how do we create this environment where the good productive reading is happening? Because I'll be honest guys, I'm pausing after every chapter, I'm looking up, I'm wandering around. Sometimes I'll do I'll post this thing that I need to post to my story after a chapter, but I'll be honest, in between every event, so some things that I like to do is edit a day of my vlog, read a chapter of my book, but in between each of those activities, I'm also having a scroll break, which is an issue. And it's that kind of behavior that we really want to cut out by trying some of the methods suggested by you guys to see what works best for me. So my ideal resolution, I feel, from this vlog would be for me to find a way to effectively dedicate a couple of hours of my day to reading, to getting through like a decent portion of my book so that I'm feeling a little bit less behind, I'm feeling a little bit more fulfilled, and I'm also freeing up some of my extra time for other hobbies, because I don't feel like I then have to spend all of my spare time reading as much as possible to make up for all of the time that I spent scrolling on my phone or staring into space or running through my to-do list mentally earlier in the day. So I'm hoping that in this vlog we can at least make some steps towards achieving that, because obviously part of this is going to be forming a routine, creating like mental associations, like positive connections and that kind of thing. But we're going to be trying out the suggestions that you guys left me on Instagram to see which ones, if any, work well for me. And to make me feel a little extra motivated to get into a new routine, I am going to be jazzing up some of my devices and giving them a seasonal refresh with the help of the sponsor of today's video, which is Becca. So this is essentially the electronic equivalent of getting yourself a new planner at the start of a new year to help you feel extra excited about a fresh start, because is there anything better than getting yourself something new and pretty to make you feel a little bit more put together. If you agree with me at all, then I definitely think you should be checking out Berger. You're probably the most familiar with Berger for their phone cases, which are not only aesthetic and chic, but protective as well, making them a great investment for your smartphone as they're lightweight, they're durable, they're shock absorbing, and resistant to daily wear. I personally love the range of Berger because they have over 300 trendy and attractive prints that cater to any aesthetic, and you can of course mix and match your products, or you can make them match for a more cohesive look. Their cases are also all made to order, which means no overproduction, which of course means no product waste. Their product range doesn't stop at phones either. They also provide cases for iPad or tablets. They cover AirPods and even Kindle cases, which we all know is my personal favorite. But you can also customize your life outside of your tech because they also offer notebooks, water bottles, yoga mats, and more, helping you to fully streamline your look. As someone who has been carrying around a big, heavy power bank for a really long time, I love their magnetic power banks for when I'm on the go because of how small and portable they are, but also because they're convenient to use and for their ability to blend seamlessly into my phone case. So if you, like me, are looking for a little refresh to help you feel extra prepared for getting your life in order and you want to check out Berger for yourself, then you can either scan the QR code on screen or click on the link right at the top of my description box and enter my code, which is BeccaBumxx15, to get yourself 15% off Berger site-wide. So that's on your entire order. And yes, this does stack with their ongoing deal where if you buy 2 phone cases, you get an extra 2 phone cases free. And if you're looking for a phone upgrade in the near future, they do also already have iPhone 17 cases in stock. Thank you very much to Berger for sponsoring this video. So in terms of the focus suggestions that I received on Instagram, we are going to talk through them a little bit before I decide what I'm going to be going with, I guess at least for today, because I received over 230 submissions, which is obviously a lot, but I also received a ton of requests from people for me to share my results. So I did decide to break all of the suggestions down and tally them up to put them into a pie chart so we could kind of see what the most popular methods were. I'm not too surprised by the majority of them, but we did have some outliers out here that I do want to highlight a little bit just for funsies, because my favorite one was actually the person who said, getting my husband to leave the house so he can stop interrupting me. Honestly, this is valid, and I'm surprised that only one person shared this. We also had a few suggestions for leaving the house to read in various different places, which makes sense, and that might be something that I explore throughout this week. But my favorite one of those was a suggestion to read in a relatively loud bar, like a sports bar, which honestly, I'm so glad that works for you, but I unfortunately do not think it will be working for me. And then one of my other favorite ones actually was somebody who suggested having a baby that requires contact for naps so that you're forced to sit and read. But I mean, sadly, I just don't think that's something that I'm going to be able to pull off in a week. So in terms of the rest of the results, we'll talk through, I guess, the most popular ones and see what we think, because I feel like some of these we are going to have to use in conjunction to make them work effectively for me. So the one that was the most popular with 44 votes is to put on some sort of ambient noise or ASMR room. So this is things like rain sounds, crackling fires, footsteps, ocean noise, or like the YouTube ASMR rooms. Now, I do use these and they do help, but I need to use them personally in conjunction with other things maybe on this list to make them work for me, because if I have an ASMR room on, that isn't stopping me from picking up my phone, you know. The second most popular one was to put on some kind of music that was like a movie soundtrack or a game soundtrack, instrumentals, piano music, lo-fi, or like playlists that are themed towards the book. I have done this in the past. Typically, this is what I do when I'm on a train and there's people talking around me. I put my headphones on and I listen to some sort of instrumental music, normally like a fantasy playlist, because I can't go for straight up rain noise or something because it's not loud enough to drown out the noise around me. A lot of people, actually 22 people, specifically suggested noise cancelling headphones. And within the headphone suggestions, we also had a few people who specifically said over-ear headphones, which are personally my preference anyway. I just don't like wearing headphones inside. It's definitely something we can consider trying, recommend for this, but I tend to use that method when I'm out of the house as opposed to at home trying to read. One that was very, very popular and for a long time was leading this is immersion reading. We actually had like almost 9% of people recommend this. So this is reading the book physically or an ebook while also listening to the audiobook at the same time. I have done this in the past for things like Red Rising because I love the audiobooks but also need to read it physically to really keep me locked in, and honestly it does work. So maybe that is something that we'll pick up this week. I'm just not super tolerant to like audible stimulation after maybe an hour. I kind of don't want to have anything on my ears and don't want that constant stimulation, which is why I feel like I don't make things like this a regular habit. Something though that I have noticed about a lot of these suggestions is that a lot of them I do know already work for me. I just don't have the discipline to constantly set myself up in this manner when I'm going to be reading. Like I just sit down with a book, don't bother to do any of these and expect magic to happen. But I feel like this video may be about routine and discipline more than anything else to get me used to doing these things, implementing these things while reading so that it's a more productive environment. We had a lot of recommendations for either the Forest app or Focus Friend. I have the Forest app, but I haven't gone to the trouble of making it lock my phone so I can still plant my trees and use my phone without killing them. But I would be interested in checking out the Focus Friend app. This one was created by Hank Green. I think it's a pretty new one, and you have like a little bean that knits socks, and if you pick up your phone, like the socks start to unravel, so that could be a cute one to try. A lot of people recommended a timer. Some specifically said Pomodoro, other people were just like, I set a timer and I have to read for that amount of time. And this kind of goes hand in hand with sprints, which were recommended by 11 people. I find when I host sprints, it's not always the most productive reading environment for me because people get their reading breaks while I'm talking, but then I don't get a break because I'm either reading or talking. So then I end up taking sprint time to go and take my break, if that makes sense. But I could try tuning into somebody else's sprints this week and see if that makes a difference. And the really annoying thing is, because one of the recommendations here that quite a few people had was marking out sections in your book. So 8 people like to put tabs in every 50 pages and they can take a break when they get to that tab. That doesn't work for me actually, because I spend most of my time flicking ahead to see how far it is until I hit that checkpoint instead of just reading. And I actually find that the timer method works a lot more for me, because if I can set a timer and forget about it, sometimes I'll be able to get locked in and forget about it until the timer goes off. A very popular one with 30 people was leaving your phone specifically in another room. Some of these people said they put them in a drawer or out of reach, but a lot of people said that they put them in a completely different room. Less popular, but in the same vein, was blocking notifications, putting do not disturb on or Zen mode or something like that. I know that that one doesn't work for me because I already do not have any notifications on my phone apart from like legit text messages or WhatsApp. So I don't get Instagram notifications, YouTube, none of that to protect my peace already. So I already have an issue obviously with picking up my phone without the notifications. So for me, it is, I think, going to be a case of leaving my phone in another room. Background noise was a really popular one. Now, the interesting thing about this is that there are different types of background noise. There's white noise, which a couple of people recommended. A couple of people recommended dark noise, which I haven't heard of, but 15 people recommended brown noise specifically. So I do feel like this is something that I may look into and see if that specific type works for me. Some people said that it also really helps with anxiety, which we all know that I could do with from time to time. 17 people recommended having some sort of specific ritual or specific place set up to read, where you get like a blanket, put cozy socks on, make yourself a warm drink, and having some sort of warm seasonal or fun drink was also recommended by 10 people as well. But setting up some sort of cozy environment to read in. And I feel like one of the problems that I have is that I associate this room with working, which is really frustrating because it's the room where all of my books are, but like my computer's right there and I don't feel like I can lock in and read because I associate this room with like being in here during the day and like when I'm working. And at nighttime it feels really weird for me to sit in here because I sit in the other room like with the TV as well. So maybe we could look at either sitting in here at nighttime, because then I'm also away from Curtis, who is maybe making noise using the TV, which is distracting me, or finding somewhere else to set up in my house and read a little bit more productively. A couple of people recommended, 13 people specifically recommended reading outside of the house. So some of the location suggestions for this were nature. 3 people recommended this. I think 5 people recommended a cafe. 1 person said car. reading in the car. One person said to check if there's any silent book clubs near me, which I think there are, like an hour away, but I don't know when they are. And then we did have the sports bar suggestion as well. A cafe could be a good show, especially combined with maybe some noise cancelling headphones to see if that helps me out at all throughout the week. And then everything else has less than 10 submissions. Interestingly, I think only 9 people require it to be very quiet or complete silence. The majority of other people require some other form of external stimulation aside from reading to help them to focus, which I did find to be very interesting. I have noticed, like, I used to love reading out in the garden when I lived with my parents because they live in a more countrified location. So the only noise that you would ever hear is like lawnmowers. And there was lots of like bird song, and it was like a real outdoorsy, naturey soundscape, which really helped me. And I also, a couple of years ago, I was dog sitting for my dad, and I actually got a lot read there because it was like I associated being there with reading as opposed to being at home. So I feel like this week we're going to be focusing on providing a positive reading environment and maybe building some associations with certain things, like, I don't know, maybe brown noise that helps me to recognize hearing that noise with focusing on reading. So like I said, we're going to use a combination of these tactics and see how much we get read. So let's go let you guys know what I'm currently reading and then decide how we're going to be reading it. So I don't normally share TBRs for vlogs, but I feel like in this instance, what I'm thinking about reading is very much going to influence the way I decide to go about reading it. But my main focus of this vlog is going to be my September TBR outside of Shelve It or Scrap It. But saying that, the book that I'm currently reading is for Shelve It or Scrap It. I have already started it and I cannot bear to put it down. So I'm going to be continuing it in this video, and hopefully it will be the first thing that I finish. But that is Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V. Schwab. I'm already 175 pages into it. As it is a Shelve It or Scrap It book, I won't be going into too much detail about it here because I will obviously be heavily covering it there. But I am having such a good time with this so far. The tagline for this book was like toxic lesbian vampires, and it is already delivering, and it's reminded me so much of Interview with the Vampire, but with female leads instead of male, and I am living for it. V. Schwab is very hit or miss for me. There are books that I love from V. Schwab and books that I really don't like, but this one I thought was going to be in the vein of The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, which is one of my favorites, and so far I am pleased to report that it is definitely delivering on that front with a very slow atmospheric narrative that traverses like different points in time. We have characters ranging from the 1500s up to 2019 in here, all of which are vampires. I think we have 3 perspectives in total, and one of them I'm very excited to hear more about because 174 pages in, we've actually only had her perspective once so far. So this one is the first book that I'm aiming to finish, and at this rate hopefully it won't take me too long. I think also reading a book that I'm really enjoying is going to help with the focus because I want to continue on with this and read more and more of it, and I don't think it's going to be particularly difficult for me to lock into this for an extended period of time. After that, I pretty much have my Patreon picks. I have 2 here. If I manage to get to more, then I'll get to more, but the first one I'm going to be tackling is on my Kindle. It's Shadow Kissed by Rebecca L. Garcia. This one is a vampire fantasy romance. That is all I know about it. I do think I'm going to struggle a little bit more with the focus on this one though, and I'll need to employ some of these tricks a little bit more heavily to get me to lock in. And then we also have Prince of Thorns by Mark Lawrence. I've read from Mark Lawrence before and I've enjoyed his work, but I don't find his writing style the most gripping, so I do think I will need to add something a little extra to help me to read this for extended periods of time, especially because I think that the content of this book is going to be quite dark as well. So one of the tactics that I'm quite eager to employ that I think that Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil is going to be a perfect fit for is immersion reading. So essentially listening to the audiobook at the same time as reading the physical. Like I said, this is something that has worked for me in the past, but with audio, because I am quite sensitive when it comes to audible content, I think that I need to have the right kind of book for that environment, which is why it's not something that I do consistently. But I know that that there are 3 narrators for Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. Full cast audios are something that I definitely gravitate towards, and I feel like that is really going to help me with this book specifically. So we're going to do that for the length of this book maybe and see how that pans out, but that is definitely what we're going to be leaning in today to start off this challenge. So it's a few hours later now, but I'm finally ready to get into reading, and I've been thinking about how I can make this experiment feel more fair, because we have so many variables in here, right? There is how much time do I have to read in a given day? Have I got a lot more free time, so I've read a lot more? Is the book that I'm reading a little bit more dense than the last one, so it reads slower? Or am I less interested in it, so I'm not quite as motivated to read it? So there's no way that this experiment is actually going to be in any way even. Like, it's just, I don't think it's possible unless I just read one really long book and tried all of the different methods to kind of see which one was best. I don't think there's a way that we could make this like truly fair. But something I think that we're going to do is we're going to read for 2 hours a day, and I'm going to sit down and I'm going to take those 2 hours back to back, and I'm going to see, using each of the methods throughout the week, what method encourages me to read more and what like keeps me focused. But I am also going to be combining some of the methods because I feel like they're just going to work better in conjunction. So the first one we're going for here is obviously immersion reading, and something that I really do want to do throughout the most of this week is keep my phone in a different room. Don't want it anywhere near me. I don't want that distraction. But if I'm immersion reading, I do need the audiobook. So I decided that today we would be combining immersion reading with the timer method, and we were going to be doing that with the bean. So I've installed the Focus Friend app and I have my bean. I did like a 5-minute sprint to kind of see what was what, and by sprint I just set the timer for 5 minutes. I didn't actually do anything during that time, but I'm going to do a couple of 45-minute sprints with a short break in between, and then I'll do probably like an extra 20 minutes to round it out to 2 hours. If I want to read more in a day after that, then that is absolutely fine, but for the sake of like figuring out what helps me focus more, we'll see how much I can read in like a 2-hour back-to-back 2-hour period every single day. The only problem with this though is that I'm not going to be able to stop it from blocking my apps, which in this is deep focus mode, so that restricts all of your apps. And in the settings you can actually add a list of apps that will allow you to access them while the timer is active and the bean is knitting, but you have to pay for Pro for that, and I don't really want to. The good thing is though is that with immersion reading, the chances of me picking up my phone are generally pretty slim because the audiobook like kind of helps me to keep locked in. But yeah, I just wanted to let you guys know that I can still access my phone if I want to, but the point is to not. See, this is the issue that I had with Forest. If you don't use deep focus mode, you can still use your phone as normal while growing a forest, and me being me, it's like, okay, well, I just won't turn it on. But today I don't have a choice because I need to go on Spotify for the audiobook, so I'll set it to 45 to start us off. It is a little bit later than I wanted it to be today because I had to go out and get some food, and then I made dinner, worked out, had a shower, and I've only just gotten around to reading my book, and it's 9:20, so we're going to be going till around 11:30. At some point in this 2 hours as well, I might get myself ready for bed and transition into the bedroom, in which case I'll kind of like pause the 2-hour time limit. But yeah, we'll see how I get on. So it's officially been 2 hours. The time is 23:23. And in that time, I have made... Brie isn't even in the same room as me, and she's complaining that I'm talking. I have made 117 socks. So I'm going to spend some of those on furnishings for my little bean room. I think that this was pretty successful. I'm on page 274, so I've read, I think, exactly 100 pages, and I'm past the halfway mark in the book now. We've arrived arrived in London, seemingly pretty much on the set of Bridgerton, and that is one of my least favorite time periods. So we'll see how the next section of this plays out. But so far so good. I do really like the audiobook of this, which helps. I think the bean was pretty much just an accessory to this. I do think that the timer helped. I only took one like 15-minute break in between two 45-minute sprints, and then I had like 10 minutes left to round out the hour. So I just started a 10-minute timer. But because I was listening to the audio and reading along at the same time in immersion reading, I never really felt a desire to pick up my phone. But the timer to give me like a set amount of time to read and then giving me the opportunity to have a little break, I think did definitely help. And the only thing with this method though is that I am of course tied to the speed of the audiobook. Given the time that I have, like I'm not going to read any more or any less than the audiobook dictates, which I'm currently listening on 2x speed, which is a little bit slow for me in terms of reading along, but this is definitely a book that I want to take my time with as opposed to like rushing through. 100 pages I would say in 2 hours is pretty decent just in general. And I think obviously because I still have 250 pages of this book left to go or something round about that, tomorrow will be interesting because I think we're going to mix it up a little bit and see what happens. Okay guys, we're mixing it up today. We are going to be having an afternoon reading session. I do not think that this is going to go as well as it went yesterday for a couple of reasons. The first one is that I have been filming all day and I had a whole bunch of stuff I wanted to film. So I'm getting started at almost 3 p.m. and typically this is a very kind of slumpy time of day for me. It's not a productive time of day. And I feel like when you add reading into that, I am going to end up being quite sluggish in terms of my reading pace. We're also switching it up in terms of my stimulation today, because I'm actually not going to immersion read because there were so many different recommendations for things to listen to. I want to try a range of them, as many as possible, to figure out if any of them work for me better than others. I do have a suspicion that immersion reading is going to be the best because obviously if you look up and take 10 seconds to look around the room, the audiobook's still playing, so it's not actually slowing down your pace. But today we're going to be going for some sort of instrumental music. I do have a artist called, I think, TPR that I listen to pretty frequently. They do like piano covers of Final Fantasy, Legend of Zelda, Ghibli soundtracks, and I tend to listen to those quite a lot if I do need to listen to something instrumental while I'm reading. My first stop is going to be to see if I can find a specific playlist that matches the book, and if not, I'll probably default to TPR. I do sometimes listen to like a generic fantasy playlist as well, so maybe I could find like a vampire playlist. I'm going for the noise cancelling headphones today, which I don't like to have in the daytime, you know, just in case someone knocks on the door and because they're noise cancelling, even though the door's right there, like I'm not guaranteed to be able to hear that. And then we're also going to be combining those two things because once again I'm going to need my phone to play the music, so it needs to be in the room with me ideally, although it's not as essential for this because I don't need to pause, like I can just take the headphones off. But we're going to be combining this with my Bean Boy, and I know yesterday I said that I wasn't going to pay any money for this app, but I might subscribe for 1 month because I want some stuff that you can only acquire by knitting scarves, and you can only knit scarves if you join Pro. I mean, it is only £2 a month, so I'm happy to sign up for a month and then cancel it just to get my small amount of scarf related items. But I hate apps that are on subscription models. Like if it was $4.99 and you pay that once and you have it forever, like I can't remember how much Forest is, but that's how you pay for Forest, then I would buy it. But I hate the $1.99 a month because I don't know if I'm going to use it every month, and then I have to be like super on top of my subscriptions, you know. But I think while we're doing this, and I anticipate using it a lot this week, I might as well just pay the $1.99 now, so I'm getting like a full week of use out of it, and I actually have chance to knit some scarves. And we'll see how much I get read in 2 hours. Like I said, I really, because of the time of day and also because I'm not immersion reading, I don't think we're going to beat yesterday's 100 pages, but I'm going to be playing Lorcana. It's Lorcana night, so I'm going to be playing cards with Curtis. I'm not going to have 2 hours later, so if we're going to get it done, we got to get it done now. Music from down the hall. Did I make it better? Did you feel it all come crashing down? Like it's simple, like I've known it all along. Like I've counted on my fingers all the times that it's gone. Oh, I wish that I could give you what you want. So I have ran over very, very slightly. It's 5:05 just to get to the end of the chapter that I was in the middle of when the timer ran out. But guys, I read over 100 pages. Last night I told you guys that I read 100 pages, and that was without these like dividers in between the characters. So obviously that is an extra 2 pages. So yesterday I read 102. And if we flip this one over, I'm now on page 380. So I've read 104 pages. Can you believe it? I genuinely did not think that I was going to beat yesterday. I once again took one 10 to 15 minute break in the middle. So I did 45 minutes, a break, and then an hour. And I've read pretty much the same as yesterday, which tells me that my natural reading speed is slightly faster than I've been listening to the audiobook, because otherwise I've obviously been slightly distracted. I've had to go back and read a paragraph or two now and then. But otherwise, like, I've done real well. I'm real proud of myself. Playlist that I listened to was really good as well. It is the one that I showed in the B-roll. It literally just says reading Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. I think you can link playlists from Spotify. So I will link it down in the description box if you guys want to check it out. There were a couple of different ones that I tried, but this one, while it is still all instrumental, because I can't deal with songs with lyrics while I'm reading, it was a mix of more classical instrumentals and more modern instrumentals, and the moments where the mood of the music matched up with the mood of the book, like there was this really kind of like light, wistful music while we were having a scene where 2 of the characters are kind of meeting for the first time and like a relationship is blooming there. Like, this is gay as fuck. There is lots of romantic relationships between the ladies in this book. So it was kind of where they were meeting and getting to know each other for the first time, and we had that music and it was just perfect. Of course, on the flip side of that, there were times when the mood was a little bit lighter and the music was like hella dark. But overall, I would consider that a success. Genuinely surprised that that worked pretty much exactly as well as immersion reading did. We'll see what happens tomorrow, because tomorrow I'm planning on doing pretty much the same, but with an ASMR room in the living room with surround. Well, it depends on YouTube, because I don't think it's true surround sound. We have surround sound, but playing an ASMR room on YouTube doesn't quite give the full surround sound effect. But I'm planning on doing that with a timer, maybe on my iPad, but without my phone in the room, and we'll see how that compares. Okay, so as promised, today is the day that we are leaving my phone in another room while I read. So I'm actually going to be really, really bold about it, because I'm going to leave my bean in here knitting his scarves and his socks for the entire time. Is that the whole timer? Yeah, the whole time that we're doing this reading session, which is 2 hours. Let's hope I don't have the urge to scroll. Well, I mean, that's the point of this, right? So I'm just setting up for today's session. I'm being very, very, oops, what's that? I stood on one of Bree's buns. I'm being very brave today because I'm giving up my noise cancelling headphones and opting for the vibes of like the ambience room with the surround sound that doesn't work properly with YouTube. Surround sound doesn't work with YouTube, right? He said that it simulates surround sound, so it'll give me some sort of impression of surround sound, although it won't be the real thing. So hopefully that'll make it nice and atmospheric. I've also made a cup of tea, which I'm just waiting for that to brew. It is one of the Booker teas, which is the nighttime one, because it is nighttime. I've opted for the evening session again after my workout, so it's like 9:15, so we're doing another late one. But in terms of my ambience room, actually, because it's Magical Readathon, I've decided that I'm obviously going to be going for one of the Magical Readathon ones because it makes sense. And I have no way to tell what time it is right now. I think I might get my iPad out so that I can set smaller timers within the 2 hours, because I feel like if I just try and read for 2 hours, that's too much time to do like all in one go. And if I don't know when I'm supposed to break, I'll just break at random points and it won't be efficient. So because I'm studying spells and incantations for Magical Readathon right now, I've gone for the Locked Library ambience because there's no subject specific one for spells and incantations. And this one is a 3-hour room. So I've put the marker at 1 hour so that I know when the ambience runs out, like when the video changes, my 2 hours are up. I also haven't read any of my books since my 2-hour session yesterday. So I'm starting at the page 380 mark. This book is 530 pages long. So my goal for today is obviously once again at least 100 pages. like the last 2 days. But if I could get a little further, a little closer to finishing, then I definitely would like to do so. And then if I can't finish it in the 2 hours, at least I should be able to finish it in bed. So today we're doing the warm drink, the ambience room, phone in a different room. We are not doing noise cancelling headphones on. I'm wondering if that's going to make a massive difference, because I feel like it might. So I have run over very slightly by 2 minutes and 13 seconds, which is how far I'm into the next ambience room in the playlist that started after the library one ended. But guys, I've only gone and done it again. I'm on page 496, which means that in that session, I read 116 pages. So it's my best day yet. I think the difference with this one is that with my phone in another room and my bean knitting socks, I had nothing to do when I wasn't reading. So I started with a 45-minute timer, and then in the break, what did I do? I went into the other room for something. I'm sure I did something, but I don't remember what it was. I had like a walk around for like 2 minutes, and then I started again for 45 minutes. And then after that one, I let Brie out, and so that she doesn't have to go before I go to bed. And I went to the bathroom, I checked my phone again, we were still knitting socks, and then I came back and just read for another 20 minutes. So I think that's why I read more, because my breaks were shorter, whereas the break in between, I was doing like a 45-minute and a 1 hour sprint last time, but I was taking like a big like 15-minute break just scrolling in between the 2 sprints that I was doing. So I'm genuinely surprised though, because this started off as a struggle because Curtis was in here. He wasn't like making noise, but he was playing, I think, Fortnite Festival on his Steam Deck, so I could hear the buttons being pressed, which was really annoying. And I actually had to turn the dehumidifier off, because normally actually I really like the dehumidifier because it dampens the sound from the neighbours. You actually can't hear them very much because our walls are pretty thick. I live in like an old Victorian house, but they drink in the garden sometimes and they can be quite loud, and they play music like in their living room. So sometimes on a weekend, like I can very faintly hear the music through the wall. I have super sensitive hearing, so the dehumidifier drowns that out. But today it was just like, it was so loud that I couldn't hear the ambience room. And then Brie was on some bullshit and was like just dicking about, and I was like, this is just not going to go well. But lo and behold, 116 pages later, and this is the best day of the experiment so far. So we will see what tomorrow holds, because I was going to do something very, very different tomorrow, and I still might, but I think I may have miscalculated by scheduling to do this on a Thursday. So I'm going to get up in the morning, God willing, and I will reevaluate or evaluate the day and see what we decide to try then. But I am going to be reading a new book, so I'm interested to see how that's going to play into the amount that I read, because I only have like 34 pages left of this, so I'm going to go get ready for bed and finish it up there. Good morning, guys. I have sat and I've contemplated what we're going to do today, because my original plan for the day was to go outside, because a couple of people suggested going to different locations to try reading there, and there was different places suggested. Obviously there was a car, a sports bar, which I was going to say I don't have access to. There is a sports bar like 20 minutes away from me, but I honestly just don't think that that is my vibe. There was also cafes, nature. So my original plan was to maybe go read in the park for an hour and then go to a cafe for an hour, because I know you can just kind of sit in a cafe for hours, but I feel like I very much would be overstaying my welcome if I did that. I'm not somebody who goes out on my own to eat or drink and feels comfortable doing so. So I didn't want to like try and push it and spend 2 hours there. that. And I planned to do this today because I had other things to do earlier in the week, and I wanted to leave myself Friday in case I hadn't quite finished everything I had to, and I needed the Friday to finish everything up so that I didn't have to do any work on the weekend. But I then remembered last night that Thursday is the busiest day in town because it's market day. So all of the cafes, it's like their busiest day of the week. I wouldn't be surprised if Thursday was busier than their weekends. So I was second guessing and I was like, what do I do? Do I still go? And we actually went out walking Brie this morning and I scoped out the coffee shop that I originally wanted to go to, and it does look kind of busy because it's only a small one. But there is a new cafe that's opened in town that I want to try out. And I originally wanted to try them out for brunch, but I might go down there now and see if I can spend an hour reading my book. Honestly, I don't anticipate this being a super comfortable situation for me. I mean, the seating, because it's more of a cafe, is not the most comfortable thing either. We have a lack of like vibey, comfortable coffee shops in this town, if I'm being honest. And I'm not feeling super confident about the whole thing because I always think like, oh, one day, because I can, obviously I'm self-employed, I make my own schedule, I'll go to a coffee shop and I'll work there or read there or something, but I never do. And I just feel like I know it's not going to be a productive environment for me, but we're going to try it out for an hour. I don't know what we're going to do with the rest of the hour of our day though, because the weather is really overcast. That's the other issue. I'm not reading in nature today because I wouldn't be surprised if it rains at least a little bit, and we had a thunderstorm yesterday. So the ground, if I went to the park, is not something that I want to be like setting up camp on. But speaking of the book that I'm taking with me, I haven't actually finished Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil yet. I went to bed and I didn't read anymore, so I have 45 pages left that I intended to read while I drank coffee this morning. Now because I'm going out for coffee, I don't want a double coffee. So no reading has been done yet today, and I'm going to be taking Shadowkissed by Rebecca L. Garcia with me. I have been taking this to bed with me because I've been reading it on my Kindle and it's more comfortable to hold obviously than a 500-page hardback. So I have started it. I'm not very far into it, maybe like 40-50 pages. Right now I'm not really vibing with it as well because it gets straight into the action and I just feel like I don't really have a clue what's going on because it just really just dives straight into the story. So we'll see how it goes. I think maybe a combination of reading in a place that I don't feel like I'm necessarily going to feel comfortable, plus a book that I'm not necessarily absorbed by, is A Recipe for Disaster. But we'll see how it goes. I'm going to try my best. I'm going to take my headphones, take my in-ear ones with me though, because my over-ear ones are scabby. You probably noticed. I really need to get some new ones, but they still work perfectly. It's just that like the coating on the ear covers has like mostly peeled off and it feels like such a waste to get new ones, but maybe I should get some new ones for outside of the house and I can still use those ones inside. But I'll take my in-ear headphones with me. I feel like I'll be a little bit more comfortable in them as well because I don't like the feeling or the thought of like having a lack of like sensory awareness in a public place. I feel like this is going to be a nightmare for me, but it was a suggestion. This is an experiment, so we're going to experiment and try it out.
Turns out I'm a liar, I just couldn't understand how to tell myself the truth and let it ride. Or I told myself I'm something that I'm not anymore.
Do you guys hear that? That is the wonderful sound of heavy rainfall. I got home 10 minutes ago and I just beat this weather. It was raining and I didn't take a coat with me. So I had to have Curtis pick me up from the library because I was trapped in there. And I've been home like literally 10 minutes and it has gone so dark, started to pour and the thunder started again, but I'm living for it. And look at that. She is gorgeous. Brie, you can't eat my hot water bottle. I had to get a new hot water bottle because the stopper broke on my other one and she is obsessed with it. Baby, it's really not for you. Come on, let's go in the other room. So I was a big brave girl. I took myself out to the cafe. I ordered myself a latte and an almond croissant, and I read my book for about an hour, like I said, and then I moved on. And I feel like an hour was the appropriate amount of time to be there because any longer and I would have had to order an extra drink, and honestly, didn't want one. The coffee was nice, but I'm a one coffee a day kind of girl. So after that, I had a bunch of errands that I had to run today. So I did some of those. Some were food related, so I didn't do those, but I did the other non-food related errands. And then I actually checked out my library because the library was one of the places that was suggested in places outside that I could go and read. But my library is more of a community hub than it is a library that you go and sit in and read. Like, it has tables and chairs set up. They do like meetings for older people. I've seen them doing like a World War II quiz in there before. That was lightning. I need to hurry up so I can read my book. They've also done at Christmas, they do like carol singing for old people. So it's not exactly a peaceful reading environment, but I was like, okay, I'll go check it out. And I think I got there at a really good time because it was around 12:30 when a lot of people, I think, were on like their lunch breaks. So it was really quiet in there and I had my headphones anyway. So there was no comfy chairs. I went and sat at a table and I read for another around 50 minutes. And then I was texting Curtis, telling him like, it's raining, I don't have a coat or an umbrella. And he was like, cool, I'll come extract you. And because he arrived when I had like 2 minutes left of my chapter, I don't know how much I actually managed to read. So let's get my Kindle out. I did start on page 48. And when I was at the cafe, I know that I got to page 107, I think, because I'd read like 59 pages in an hour and 5 minutes. And by the time I'd finished at the library, I was on page 167. So that's an extra 60 pages. So I've read like 119 pages, I think, which once again is a little bit better than the days previous. But I did do it a little bit differently this time. I didn't do a solid 2 hours. I did an hour and 5 minutes, and then I had like a 15-20 minute wander, and then went to the library and then read for like another 50 minutes. So that's why, because there was no like break time really accounted for. I just read for an hour in one place, then an hour in another place. I did struggle a little bit with this, especially in the library. I'm going to turn a light on and sit down so I don't have to keep holding my camera up. But when I got to the library and I was reading this book, I was really struggling. I did set up the timer on my phone for the little bean, my little bean friend. And I kept checking after every chapter how much time I had left because I do not care about this book. I'm 49% of the way into it and I have no clue what is going on and no care for why any of it is happening. This is a vampire story, but we're very much like thrown into the action, and it's not your typical like real world classic vampire lore kind of story. And that's the issue, because in chapter 1 we're following this girl who is a sorceress, but she can't access her magic. Sorceresses are very rare in this world, and her boyfriend has just died and her mother's like important, and her mother goes out on a mission. I think she's been kidnapped and the vampires come and try and take her as well, but then she's kidnapped or saved from these evil vampires by a good vampire. And then she realizes that there's 2 types of vampires: the one who saved her even though it's for his own purposes, and then the super evil ones that like suck the soul out of people. But it's also like high fantasy, as in it's not set in our real world. The level of attention that has been given to the world building in this book is absolutely none. We're also thrown in with this character who has relationships that are previously established before this book, like this ex-boyfriend that she supposedly cares so much about, and oh no, she's so sad that he's dead. I couldn't care less about this guy. I don't know who he is. This guy who saved her is the person who I think is going to be the love interest, and I feel nothing. Like, I have no idea really what is going on because the author took no time to kind of establish the setting that we were in or give us any kind of idea of who this person was before the action started in the very first chapter. And at this point, I mean, I've literally just been and read 120 pages of it, and I could read another 120 pages, another 140 pages, and I could finish this off. But I actually think I might DNF, and I'm sad because I had a really good time in the coffee shop today. The library was less enjoyable, but I mean, I couldn't have gone and sat in nature today. Can you imagine if I was actually outside when this rain started? That would have been a nightmare. And I also didn't want to go get my car because I thought of like places where I could sit, because somebody did recommend reading in the car, and I thought of places where I could go in my car where it would be like nice to read. And there's somewhere like not far away from my dad's where me and Curtis used to go if we did like drive-by fish and chips, and then we'd go and sit like on the seafront in the car and eat. But I couldn't be bothered just driving my car for 30 minutes to the seafront for the ambience, although it would have been great. staring at the seafront in the rain. That would have been an amazing time. So yeah, we tried the library. It wasn't very comfortable, but I managed to maintain focus for the time that I had to. I just didn't enjoy the book very much. So yeah, I was just going to carry on reading it for the sake of it, but I was like, you know what, why bother? So I think because I couldn't even tell you what was happening when I put it down. So I think we're just going to call it quits on this one. I have given it a try. I've read half of it, but it's just like going into my brain and passing straight out the other side. And I could care less if I never read anything from this book again. I am going to be doing quite a bit more reading today, actually, because I'm going to sit down now and finish up the last 45 pages of Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil so that I can update, shelve it, or scrap it and pick my next book. And then I'm also going to be doing sprints with my patrons tonight for a few hours, so I'll probably get some reading done there as well. I mean, that is the point of sprints. But in terms of our focus challenge, my work is done for the day. I do think though, during sprints tonight, I'm going to try, I was thinking about making sprints like the challenge section of the day, but I know that I wanted, if I did go for the sprints route, I wanted to watch somebody else's instead of hosting my own, so I decided not to. But I may employ some of the focus tactics that we've learned work really well during sprints and see if that makes a difference, because typically I read like 70-80 pages in a sprint session, which is like 3 or 4 hours. So yesterday I just carried on reading. I did finish Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V. Schwab, but I'm not going to spoil my full thoughts on that. You can wait for Shelve It or Scrap It to get all of the juicy details. But I will say that it was not the glowing review that I expected to give to that book, but I did still enjoy it. And I also then started Prince of Thorns by Mark Lawrence, and as I said, I was going to employ some of the tactics that I've learned so far in this video throughout sprints. And I think we did 5 sprints in total. The first few were all like 25-30 minutes. They were quite short, but within the first 3 sprints of that length, I read 100 pages in this, and then the 4th sprint I went for a walk, and the 5th sprint I played Fortnite. So it started off really strong, but I still got like 100 pages done in a couple of hours because I immersion read. I started the audiobook of this on Everand and listened along while I read. This is actually shorter than I expected it to be. It's 400 pages in length, but the text is larger than you would typically have in an adult fantasy book, and the audiobook on 2 times speed, which is still like very manageable to listen to, is like I could do with speeding it up a little bit to 2.3 to match my reading pace, but on mobile, like, you don't have that option for Everand. You can only jump from 2 to 2.5, which is a little bit too fast. But the audiobook's only like 4 hours and something on 2 times speed at this point. 135 pages into this, I have less than 3 hours of the audiobook to go, which I am genuinely surprised at for something that's like adult grimdark fantasy. So in terms of this book, it is following a prince whose brother and mother was killed by the Duke of a different area. So he was out traveling somewhere with them and they were murdered. They thought that they'd killed him as well, but he survived. So when his father's people, or his people, came and found the wreckage of the carriage, they took him back to the castle, and he expected his father to take revenge, obviously, for the death of his wife and his son. But he actually just negotiated like a trade agreement and carried on as normal. And the main character isn't happy with this. This is a very traumatic event in his life, and he wants justice to be served to the Duke who was responsible for killing his family. And so he ends up releasing a group of bandits from the prison of the castle, and he joins them. And because he saves the life of one of the bandits who was due to be executed, that bandit now owes him a life, and he negotiates with the bandit to take him on this journey to go and kill the Duke that's responsible. That is kind of how he starts off, because we are alternating perspectives in here, or timelines, I guess. It's all his perspective, but we're following him in the present day at 13 years old, and also 4 years in the past at 9 years old when he starts this plan into motion. And I don't really know what filled in the middle yet, because the life that he's lived on the road has changed him as a person. My big gripe with this is still, I don't believe that this 13-year-old is big, bad, and scary. I don't really understand why we've gone with such a young character, because I assume that it's going to have something to do with the timeline of the book or the series as a whole, but right now, I don't see the purpose of him being quite this young when he's doing all of these big bad things, because kids can have terrible things happen to them when they're really young, and it can turn them into terrible people that do terrible things. But, and this is the issue that I had with Six of Crows, it's not that the character is capable of the actions that they're performing that I struggle to believe, it's that they command the respect of much older, much scarier men is the thing that I struggle to actually believe when I'm reading books like this and like Hasbrecker and Six of Crows. It's not that I don't believe that he's capable of what he does, I just don't believe that he would be as accomplished and as respected as he is by people who are older, with a lot more experience and a lot scarier than him. And that's the same kind of vibe I'm getting in this so far. At the moment, I would say my thoughts on it are pretty ambivalent. It is reminding me a lot of things like the First Law series by Joe Abercrombie, but not done as well. So if I had to give you like a very brief summary of my enjoyment of this at this point, I would say that there are books in this genre that are executed much better than this, but it's all right at the moment. So we'll see how that continues. I know quite a few people really do enjoy this series, so I am hoping it to deliver something a little bit more special at some point. The audiobook is quite well narrated as well, kind of would recommend that. It's got a Yorkshire accent actually for the main character, and he kind of like, he does a good job of performing the voices of the other characters, which is what I like. I hate an audiobook that essentially just reads the book, like perform the book for me please, which the narrator is doing in here. It's Joe Jameson, which I don't know if he's an audio narrator that a lot of people like or not. I can't remember. I should check out the other things that he's done. But anyway, I am about to get into today's concentration session and we are mixing it up again. I'm still going to be blending tactics. So I have myself a fun drink, and my fun drink today is a nice cold crispy fridge Coke. And I'm also going to continue to immersion read because I feel like that's really good at keeping up the pace of this book. I did try without immersion reading to start off with. I wasn't listening to anything and I was like, wow, it feels weird to read and not listen to anything anymore. So I started the audiobook and that very much helped me to capture the vibe a lot more easily at the beginning of this. So I'm going to carry on with that. But in terms of how we're going to section off the 2 hours, we are going to do that a little bit differently, because instead of going for like time-based goals, this time we're going to try page-based goals. Now, historically, I know that these do not work for me as well as time-based goals. Like if I wasn't blending tactics, if I wasn't immersion reading, it's so much easier for me to concentrate for 45 minutes than it is for like 50 pages. So I'll just keep putting my book down. Whereas if it's 45 minutes, it's kind of like I just set the timer aside and forget about it. With the immersion reading, I'm actually predicting there's not going to be too much difference between the timer versus the page method. I'm going to aim for 50-page chunks. So I'm currently on page 134. My first break will be at page 185-ish, to the closest chapter past that. And we're also going to combine this with another tactic that people recommended, which is to reward yourself for achieving goals. So after every 50 pages, I'm going to reward myself with a different activity, and we're just going to do that for 2 hours. I've tried to keep my activities that I have planned relatively short, because obviously we're trying to keep this like a 2-hour period to get a more even result across all of the different methods. It's 8:40 now, so I guess we'll go until 10:45. My first break activity is going to be the final episode of Jax and Brittany Take Kentucky, which if y'all are invested in my Vanderpump Rules journey, I've just finished season 5. I'm on a side quest into the Jax and Brittany random 1 season 2-hour spin-off, and then I'm gonna go back to season 6. And then for my second break, so I don't anticipate getting more rewards than that, Olivia, Miss Reads a Latte, has just posted early access to her September TBR on Patreon, which is 25 minutes. So I was like, cool, I'll watch that. And then I don't anticipate us going past that. Maybe I'll get into a little bit more of my book, but I don't really feel like we're going to achieve more than that. You know what? That's going to take us to pretty late, because it's going to take us to 10:40, but doesn't even matter today, because the reason I'm not wearing my pajamas right now after my shower is because Curtis is at a stag do and I'm at pickup duty. I've told him I'll pick him up between midnight and 2 a.m. Whenever this happens, though, he's just never there at 2 a.m. and his phone's normally dead and he drives me crazy, but whatever, it's his dad's stag do, so what can I do? I'm just hoping I don't get too tired, because my ability to stay up late is not what it was, and it's like a 35-minute drive to where they've gone out, which is why I'm picking him up, because a taxi back would be a fortune. My plan after I finished my 2-hour segment is to kind of just continue to read 50 pages and reward myself until I get the call that me and Brie are going to go rescue the drunks.
I'm not anymore in an old room for you.
So it is 10:35. I started at 8:45 and I just finished my second set of pages, which means that it's time for my second reward. So obviously the 2-hour time block runs out in 10 minutes and I'm not going to have time to read any more like 50-page sections or make a start on another one. So I'm going to update you now as to how I did in the 2 hours, even though we're only at like 1 hour 50. But I read 114 pages. I started on page 135. I'm now on page 249. So once again, very in keeping with what we've done previous days, like the amount of pages that we've achieved in 2 hours. Every other day this week, my break that I took for the episode was 21 minutes, and obviously I've still got 10 minutes left over. So if the rewards were shorter, or if I took breaks that were more similar to the breaks I've been taking throughout the week, which are more around like the 10-15 minute mark, then I probably would have got a little bit more in. But I think the main thing that I'm learning here is that it doesn't actually matter what techniques we use as long as I'm actually reading, because I think that's where I'm going wrong. Because now I'm setting aside 2 hours and it's like, okay, in these 2 hours I'm going to read. And no matter what method we try, the results have been very, very similar, because normally when I'm reading, I'm not actually reading. I am just going to say, oh, I'll read for the rest of the evening, and then I'll read a chapter and pick up my phone and read a chapter and pick up my phone, and then it's the end of the evening and it's been 3.5 hours and I've read like 60 pages. So I think I'm leaving myself too open-ended, and that is why it's not as productive, and also there's no structure within the time that I'm giving myself. Whereas when I say you are reading for 2 hours and I do things to like time block or block out time within the 2 hours or help me to focus better, like I'm actually reading, and I'm really, really happy that this is what I'm discovering, because that means that I can read. It's not that I can't do it, it's that I lack intention. Like I'm going into reading like without intention, and so it's not productive and like it's not happening. So that has been really interesting to learn over the last 5 days. I will say that I didn't enjoy doing 50 pages as much as I enjoy time blocking, and that is because when I set a timer, I don't know how much I'm going to read. Like if it's 45 minutes, I assume that in that time I can read about 45 pages, but it obviously depends on like the writing style, the genre, how dense the book is and all of that stuff. Whereas with 50 pages, like 5 minutes can pass and I'm like, oh my god, I've only read 5 pages. I've still got 45 pages to go. And then we'll get like to 30 pages read and I'm like, oh, I feel like I've been here forever. I still got 20 pages to go. So whereas when I set a timer and I forget about it and I'm not preoccupied with how much I'm actually reading. I did definitely feel the 50-page markers like chafing, and I was constantly flicking ahead to see exactly how many pages I had, because obviously I was reading slightly over to read 50 pages and then to the end of the next chapter. But that could also be because I'm a little bit bored by this book. I'm not super enjoying it, but at this point I have like 120 pages left, which is about an hour and something of the book, an hour and 27 minutes. So it's 10:40. I'm going to watch Vanderpump Rules, the first episode of season 6, I think, and then probably read another 50 pages, and then it should be close to the time that I'm picking Curtis up. So at this point, especially because I just DNF'd my last book, I'm committed to finishing this one, but it feels like it's going to be a 2-star. This actually reminds me a lot of The Devils by Joe Abercrombie in the kind of story it is. There is like humor and levity in the writing style of this, and it's like a band of terrible people on a quest to achieve something, but The Devils is definitely executed way better than this. This is not hitting the mark, and I think that's my issue with it. It's not that this is necessarily terrible, even though following the perspective of somebody who is literally a rapist is an interesting choice. There are some things that we can forgive when we're following ruthless characters, and for me that's not really one of them. I don't know whether this guy is supposed to be a hero overall, whether he gets better or we're just supposed to root for him anyway, but obviously that's not a vibe. And I think that there's just a lot better books in this genre that are very similar than what I've got from this so far. We'll see if it picks up by the end. But the good news is that if I don't enjoy this, I found an arc in a charity shop of the first book in the spin-off series, which is set I think it's the same character, but maybe like sometime in the future. So I can unhaul that as well and it'll clear quite a bit of shelf space. So I received this big old box of candles today from Luna Bookish Flames Candles. So I thought it would be a good idea to open it up for you guys. I've been having a little bit of a rough day. I don't feel my best today. So I feel like this is exactly what I needed to cheer me up. But I am a rep for Luna Bookish Flames. So I do have a discount code for this shop. And my code is Becca15. That will get you 15% off your entire Luna Bookish Flames Candles order, providing you shop on their brand new website that they've just launched. So from now on, the link in my description box when I do my Luna Bookish Flames Candles unboxings will be to their website, and my code will no longer work on Etsy. So if you want your 15% discount, then make sure that you are shopping the website. I'm excited for this one because I feel like it has some autumnal candles in it. It's a super heavy one as well. I do have these cute little packs of stickers as well that Manos has thrown in for me. Thank you very much. Oh my days, this is full to the brim. So let's just get into it because I have a pizza in the oven that I'm very excited to be devouring shortly. But the first one that we have is a vampire one. Damn, it's a shame that I didn't have this sooner because I've read 2 vampire books in this vlog. This one is a fruity one. It has some notes of lemon, mandarin, so some citrus. There's also strawberry and raspberry in here. It is a fruity one, but it is also kind of like a little bit incensey, which I feel is very on theme for vampires. The next one looks like it is bakery themed, which sign me up. This one is Suki's Pecan Squares. And this one, of course, does have pecan pie in it, as well as toasted almond, coconut and maple. That is definitely like an autumnal bakery scent. I love it. Oh, Manos said that they're now also doing wax melts, and he threw, I don't know how many in, but I know that I have at least one. This one is a mulled wine fragrance with clementine, cinnamon, aniseed, musk and vanilla. And this is the Life and Death Brigade. I do have a couple of wax warmers. I don't use them as often as I like candles though. Definitely mulled wine. It's giving Christmas. The next one is a Gilmore Girls one. I was told there were a few Gilmore Girls candles in here. Still haven't watched Gilmore Girls. I need to get on that. Oh, this one's like very citrusy. Orange, ginger, cinnamon, walnut, nutmeg and woods. I'm living for the autumnal vibes and the autumnal colours. This one says I am an autumn, and the scent is, I'm assuming, very autumnal. It's toffee, apple, cardamom, cinnamon, clove, and a bunch of like fruit and spices. I do love an autumnal apple scent. Oh, this is more like, it's not as fruity as I expected it to be. It has a little bit of sharpness to it, but it's really nice. Oh no, here she comes. Hey girl. Hey girl, where you been? This one is Morning at Luke's Diner, so Gilmore Girls again. It says, oh, coffee, toffee, and toasted marshmallow. Yes, please. Oh, the coffee's strong in this one. It's hard to find a good coffee scented candle, but I do like this one. Bree's just overwhelmed with packaging. This one is a rainy day read, so great for the season. This is a fresh scent, I think. It's cotton, citrus, orange, rhubarb, and some more florals and woods. Super fresh, super light. Perfect for a rainy day. Oh my days, there's so many in here. This one looks like another baked goods candle. This one is Suki's Rocky Road Cookies. I'm assuming this is like a chocolate chip cookie kind of fragrance. Cocoa, cookies, chestnuts, buttery biscuits and creamy vanilla. Do you want to try? Considering I know how fragrant these candles are, you sniffed that way too intensely. Oh, this one is a Christmassy vanilla cookie kind of scent. I really like that one. Next up, we have one of the tins. I think that these ones are 8-ounce tins and the jars are 9-ounce. This one is Halloween pumpkin pie. The scent is pumpkin waffles, syrup, pecans, and brown sugar. Oh, this has a cute little pumpkin confetti glitter in it. Oh, this is my favorite so far. This is like a very lightly spiced pumpkin. I love it. Next up, we have one of the smaller tins. This one is Stars Hollow, which I think is the town where Gilmore Girls is. And it is pumpkin latte, toasted marshmallow, creamy sandalwood, and praline. Oh, I can't get the lid off this one. There we go. Spicy. I like it. We have, oh my days, we still have 5 candles left. You can get out of here. Your trouble. If you just eaten that and spat it out. No packing chips. This one is Stars Hollow Autumn Festival. And the fragrance is pumpkin, apple, berry, sugar, vanilla, and cinnamon. Oh, we have some more pumpkin confetti in here. This one's like more of a fresh scent than the others, like it's lighter on the spices. Next up we have Dragonfly Inn. She keeps picking up the one that's got the candle in. Give it back, thank you. And the scent, ooh, this one starts with coconut and it also has peach, butterscotch, bourbon, tonka beans, caramel and vanilla. I do love a bourbon candle. Oh, that is like so rich and chocolatey. I feel like it has like a lot of vanilla-y marshmallow scent in it. Can I have that? I need to open this one. Thank you. This one is Where You Will Lead, I Will Follow. Once again, Gilmore Girls. The fragrance on this one is, ooh, it's a coffee one. Espresso, cocoa, biscuit, vanilla orchid, whipped cream, caramel, and amber. Oh, I really like this one as well. This is actually very like perfumey and it feels like it's going to have a strong burn on it. And this one is Luke. So I feel like this has to be a coffee scent, right? It is straight up ground coffee beans. Oh, and it's strong. That is a strong coffee scent. And then what I think is the last one, unless Brie has run off and stolen any of them, we have, oh, pumpkin spice latte, which I imagine smells like a pumpkin spice latte. Oh, it does. This is a really nice pumpkin spice latte scent, actually. I'm a fan. So I'm always a fan of an autumnal candle collection. The majority of candles that I have in my house are autumnal because it is my favorite. But of the candles that I've shown you guys today, I do have 3 favorites. We have the pumpkin spice latte, which I just showed you. The Where You Will Lead, I Will Follow, which was the perfumey scent. And my favorite of them all, I think, is the Halloween pumpkin pie because I inhaled that way too much, but it has like the sweetness of like a pumpkin scent. It's like pumpkin and vanilla kind of candle, which are the ones that I'm always drawn to. So if you guys would like to pick up any of these for yourself, then I will have the link to Luna Bookish Flame's brand new website down in my description box. And don't forget that you can use my code Becca15 to get yourself a discount. I think there's more Halloween and like autumn candles coming as well. And obviously if you're a Gilmore's Girl fan, then you're probably going to want to check this out. So today has not gone as planned for me, mainly because I have been a moody little bitch, if I'm being brutally honest. My original plan for the day, the tactic I wanted to tackle, was reading sprints because I knew that Olivia, once again from Olivia Reads a Latte, was hosting Patreon sprints today at 4:30 and I was like, cool, I'll join those, I'll read for 2 hours. But I was just in such a terrible place mentally today. I was just really frustrated. So I had to move my body until I got rid of my bad attitude, essentially. So instead, because I just couldn't sit still and read, that was not on the agenda for earlier today. I needed to really just like do something. And so I had dinner, did some yoga, 30 minutes, and then walked for a couple of miles, and I feel much better now. So I'm going to be combining 2 things again, and that is reading sprints. I'm now going to watch back Olivia's sprints instead of watching them live, which I do definitely prefer to join sprints live because then I can actually engage in the chat. But I'm also going to be doing that in the bath now. I used to spend hours and hours and hours and hours in the bath when I was a kid. Don't really do that anymore. I tend to spend an hour and 15 minutes in there. So I don't know if I can stay in for 2 hours, but I'm going to put Olivia's sprints on. I'm currently running my bath already, and maybe after, because I think she does quite long actual sprint sections, maybe after the first one I'll like dry off and stuff while she's talking, and then I'll do another sprint elsewhere and I'll kind of cut it at the 2 hour mark and see how much I read. But I haven't quite finished Prince of Thorns by Mark Lawrence. I have like 60 pages left, but I don't want to finish this because when I finish a book, I then want a little break before I start something else or move on to something else. So I don't want to finish that in like 45 minutes and then have to directly move on to something else. So I'm just going to start a completely new book. And because we only have today and tomorrow left of this experiment, I am going to be jumping into my next book for Shelve It or Scrap It because I don't really want to be starting something that I'm not going to finish before the end of the week and then have to kind of read that alongside all of the books that I still need to read for Shelve It or Scrap It. So once again, spoiler alert for the next episode, which should hopefully, if all goes well, be coming to you very, very soon. But I'm going to be reading Love in Focus by Lyra Lee. This is the Afterlight edition without the dust jacket on it because I prepared it to read. I love the naked hardcover of this. This is a contemporary sapphic romance between a photographer and a columnist, I think that is literally all I know about it. I picked this for one of the magical readathon prompts for obviously Shelve It or Scrap It because I wanted a little bit of a change of pace, a little bit of a palate cleanser away from fantasy. Because the last books I've read, I obviously read Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. I read half of like a indie vampire romance, and then this, which we'll talk about this when I finish it because I have thoughts, but this is obviously like adult grimdark fantasy. So I wanted something a little bit different and a little bit pacier. So we'll see how it goes. This was actually sent to me accidentally by Illumicrate. They were meant to send me the June regular box and they sent me the Afterlight instead, but when I emailed and asked about it, like whether they wanted me to send it back, they said that I could just keep it, and I thought while I have it I might as well give it a go, and I wanted to do that pretty soon while I'm still kind of excited and interested in it because I haven't had it too long, because I feel like otherwise with this being something that I acquired accidentally, it has potential to languish on my shelves for a very long time. So it's because it's a contemporary romance, I do anticipate it being quite a quick read, and it's also not very long as well. I think it's actually just under 300 pages. I do think I'm going to struggle today reading in the bath because I don't plan on taking headphones with me or anything, and I don't want to play music out loud in there, so I don't really know how well I'm going to be able to concentrate. It's 309 pages, so yeah, it's quite short, but then because it's quick and easy to read, maybe that will make up for a potential lack of concentration.
Baby's in his Levi's, I'm in his shirt. He's alone summer, home on a porch. He reads me.
But also I am reading all this twisted word. And I'm actually liking it more. Oh wow, I just wiped myself with this. I'm liking it more than I did first reason.
I feel like every time I say to you guys, this is the time that I'm not going to be able to do it, this is the tactic that will not work for me, I just managed to pull it out of the bag probably from sheer spite, honestly, which to be fair really just accentuates my point that it's more about the intention than it is about the focus method. Like, I'm intentionally reading, and that is why it's actually working out for me, because I was definitely right about the fact that this is quick and easy, making it something that was easy to read in the bath with sprints, because I got to page 134, making this the most successful day of the experiment so far. Now, not only is this quick and easy by nature because it is a contemporary romance, the writing is quite simple in here, and for that reason, I kind of just think it's okay. Like, I'm enjoying it. I feel for me, this is like a real character flaw. It's either I love it or I don't care about it. There is no in between. And it's not like offending me in any way. I'm just not like super invested. And so I'm like, yeah, it's fine. It's whatever. I don't think it's going to be a keeper, but it's okay. Like, I'm not having a terrible time. I feel like we haven't had any bangers in this vlog. It's so unfair. But in terms of the methods that I use, I did tune into Olivia's sprint. So I watched the beginning chatty segment while I was finishing running my bath and getting in. And then I did 175-minute sprint because I was right. She does like her long sprints. And then I also, during that sprint, while also reading, I managed to shave my legs, wash my entire body. I'm pretty sure I did something else as well. Oh, I exfoliated. I put like a exfoliation mask on. And then during the chatty break, I got up. I took a little bit longer than the actual break because I was getting out of the bath and I dried myself off. And then I did an additional 30 minutes with the sprints before my 2 hours ran out. So I think in the first like entire sprint that I did, I read about 90 pages in 75 minutes. And then I read another like, must be like 40 pages. So yeah, another successful day of this experiment. I feel like the main lesson that I am learning here is that I need to set my intentions clearly to be able to read productively. And actually, I know that we selected 2 hours a day for this experiment, or I did. Like, you guys didn't have much input on that, I'm going to be honest. But because I decided to go for 2 hours and it's actually really working out for me right now, I think I'm going to try and maintain a 2-hour unbroken amount of reading time in my day, because something that I'm really loving about this is that it is freeing up most of my time. Like, knowing that I'm going to read about 100 to 130 pages in 2 hours means that I'm not constantly like, oh, should I read though? Should I do this instead of reading? Should I break up my work day with reading? Because otherwise I'm not going to read. Like, I know that I can read this amount in this amount of time if I only set my mind to it, and that is like a weight lifted. Hello besties, welcome to day 7 of this challenge. I'm looking a little rough today, but it is a Sunday. Sunday is my rot day, but I actually spent the majority of today cleaning. Ignore this, we've just had dinner. Curtis is about to come and do the dishes. But I spent the majority of like my morning and early afternoon cleaning, and then I've been rotting on the couch watching back-to-back episodes of Vanderpump Rules. I'm 6 episodes into season 6 now, and I am shook to my core. Like every episode, something more explosive happens, and I feel like I need an episode of calm just to really get my bearings. So before we get into what I'm going to be doing for the final day of this challenge, this morning while I was drinking my coffee, I did finish Prince of Thorns by Mark Lawrence. Unfortunately, this was not a win for me. I ended up giving it 2 stars overall, and I have made the decision right now to DNF this series. I don't think I'm going to continue, but there was one kind of redeeming quality in this book, one thing that happened a couple of 100 pages in that really piqued my interest. And I was getting hints of it earlier on, but it's kind of when the book confirmed that it's actually a post-apocalyptic story, not a high fantasy story. So there's people in here referred to as the builders, and there was something about the way that they were discussed that made me think that they were making a reference to like our modern day society. And I think it was at a point where our main character Jorg was reading something that he didn't understand the meaning of, but it sounded to me like a medical textbook, that I realized that we were potentially somewhere in the future here, or we were connected to the real world in some way. A little bit later on, it is kind of confirmed that this is set after our world has ended, and it's kind of reverted to this more simplistic medieval kind of way of life, which reminds me a lot of a fantasy romance series that I didn't like. It was the Fae Guardian series by Lana Bachurzik. I DNF'd after book 2 because obviously that was a romance series. It was very focused on the romance, whereas I was interested in the world, which once again was a post-apocalyptic version of our world that had reverted back to a kind of high fantasy setting. So I got really excited when I discovered that that was the case with this world, because I was really excited about that in the Fae Guardian series, but it was never like really the topic of focus. Whereas I feel like with this being a adult grim dark fantasy, it would dive into those connections to our real world a little bit more. That being said though, that's pretty much the only thing that I enjoyed about this book. I have struggled with the character, and I know that he's an anti-hero character. You are in his head and in his perspective, so a lot of his actions seem quite reasonable, even though he is definitely not a good guy. And there's no doubts about the fact that he isn't a good guy, because I went into this book knowing that, like knowing that he was a terrible person and did terrible things. It isn't the thing that put me off this book the most. Like, I'm not shocked that he's a bad guy, and I don't dislike this book because of that, but it meant that I wasn't super connected to him as a character, and I'm not exactly eager to continue reading his story. I also just really struggled to believe that he'd accomplished so much at the age of 13, 14, and that he was this big bad warrior guy. And I know when we talk about medieval fantasy, the age that men become men is a lot younger. Like Game of Thrones, I think Jon Snow is like 14, or Robb Stark is 14, which I think they're both the same age actually, and Sansa's like 13 or 12 or something. So technically, if we were back in the medieval times, then everybody would be a lot younger, but that doesn't mean just because you become a man at 14 doesn't mean you command respect. At 14 and you suddenly become accomplished at 14, you still need a few years to gain that experience. That just doesn't just happen on your 14th birthday, you know? But overall, I think in terms of a grimdark story, this wasn't really doing anything that I haven't read before, but executed better. I was bored through it a lot of the time. It actually has a brotherhood, like a band of brothers, which is the mercenaries that our main character travels with and like kind of leads. And I just didn't feel like the writing led me to connect to any of them. I honestly couldn't even tell you any of their names or any identifying features about them. I cared so little about them as side characters. So overall, I just found this to be incredibly mid, but I will admit the fact that this is a post-apocalyptic fantasy and the way that it ties to our world, I think it's like an environmental collapse kind of apocalypse that's happened. So the way that this story connects to our world and like what happened to end the world and how society has ended up in this kind of medieval place but with like human artifacts is very, very interesting to me. But I would assume that that would play a bigger role in the coming books, like in the rest of the series. But I've also read Red Sister by Mark Lawrence, which has, I can't remember the specifics of it now because it is a while since I read those books, but there is something similar there as well, where there's this other like really interesting element of the world building which is relevant to the world, but in terms of the story it's not like the biggest focus. So I can't say whether if I continue to read any more on this it would give me any more information about that tiny bit that I'm interested in or not, because I actually think it would just continue in this kind of fashion as Jorg racks up accomplishment after accomplishment until he has the world in his tyrannical reign, which isn't something I really want to read. So unfortunately, I will not be continuing with this series. It is fine. I've read a different series from Mark Lawrence before that I've enjoyed. I have more books from Mark Lawrence that I'm excited to read. I did want to try this one, but I knew because of the subject matter and because I knew what the tone of it was going into it, that this could very easily be a miss for me, and I'm okay with that. So in terms of what we're going to be doing for today's challenge, we are going to be doing something a little bit different to round out the week. This is something that wasn't suggested as much as I expected it to be, actually. I think we had between 3 and 6 people suggested this, so it wasn't one of the most popular, but it was definitely like a common thread, I guess, and that is listening to an audiobook while either doing a hobby or going for a walk or doing like some other activity at the same time. And I've decided to go with a hobby because it is a Sunday. I've already done my cleaning for the day, and actually I don't really like listening to audiobooks when I'm cleaning because I'm thinking about like what I'm going to move on to next, and it takes me away from the audiobooks. That doesn't especially work for me. I am surprised how little this was suggested though, because I know a lot of people listen to audiobooks while doing other things, especially people who are like content creators or who read a lot will pop on an audiobook like while they're running errands and things like that. I think maybe the reason why it wasn't suggested as much as I expected is because I asked specifically for focus tactics, and for me an audiobook is more an accompaniment to my hobby as opposed to the hobby being something that helps me to focus on a book. Like if my intent is to read a large amount of a book, then combining an audiobook and a hobby is not the way that I would think to achieve that. It's more like I want to do a jigsaw and I can listen to an audiobook at the same time and be like extra stimulated is the way that I look at it. So maybe that's why people didn't recommend it, but I thought it would be a nice one to round out the week because I really want to do a jigsaw. Sundays are my hobby days where I like to do a little bit of crafting, watch some TV, read some books, just be a little chill. And so I thought it would be the perfect end to this challenge and also something a little bit different. So the book that I'm listening to, I am not going to be reading any more of Love in Focus. Is that what it's called for this challenge? Still halfway through that, still reading it. It's just because we're going for an audiobook. I'm actually going to be listening to the book that I'm solely ingesting on audio right now, which is the Dungeon Anarchist Cookbook by Matt Dinnerman. As you can see, I have 7 hours and 38 minutes of this left. I'm on chapter 12. And in my September TBR, I did say that for Magical Readathon, because there's a prompt that is like to read a book that's set in like a dungeon or a hideaway or a lair. And I already started this in August, so I put book 4 on my TBR for it. But then when I opened it up, like I listened to so little audiobook in August that I was only like 100 pages in, and I think at book 3 is around the point where these books start to get a little bit longer. Yeah, so according to Goodreads, where I've been marking my progress, this book is 532 pages, so I was like 20% of the way through it. So I've actually bought a scroll of continuation from the Guild Emporium for Magical Readathon, which allows you to read a book that you've already started and use it for one of the prompts, and I'm going to be using book 3 instead. So I do anticipate, in terms of the amount of pages that I read, I'm listening to this a little bit slower because sometimes it can be quite action-packed and a little bit not difficult to follow, but like I actually want to follow what's going on when I'm listening to something that's fantastical or science fiction and not reading along at the same time, because otherwise like it's a little bit too fast for me to truly understand. So because it's on 1.5, we maybe won't get quite as many pages as we typically do, but because I'm doing a hobby, I'm not going to be taking any breaks, I don't think, like I have. I aim to pretty much just sit here for 2 hours, and if I get up to get a drink or anything, I'll probably just leave the audiobook playing. So my puzzle, actually, do you care about that? I'll show you. I'm starting from scratch because I don't have anything on my board at the minute. I'm doing the Walkies puzzle by Linda Jane Smith. I collect these, so the artist has a bunch of different cat and dog puzzles that are all in this kind of vein with either dogs or cats in different scenarios. I can't remember if I've done this one. I think I've got Walkies and I also have Walkies too, but it was in the place where my undone puzzles are, because I try to separate them because I can never remember what I've done and what I haven't. But I know I've run out of space where my completed puzzles are. I should probably de-stash them, but I collect these, and I also collect Disney puzzles. So because I collect them because I enjoy them so much, I then don't want to give them away after I've done them, which is a problem because puzzles, they take up quite a bit of space. But anyway, I need to get cracking so that we can actually do this thing. It is 6:40, so I'm going to be aiming to go to 8:40, and we'll see how much I read for the final day of this challenge.
He holds me down every kind of road. Baby's in a taxi, I'm in his arms.
My camera battery is nearly dead, so I'm gonna have to be speedy, but I'm trying not to get everything stuck to my arms. It is 8:46 and all of the Dungeon Crawler Call books are on Kindle Unlimited, so I just use, if I want the physical at any point, I just have the Kindle copy, and this is saying I'm on page 255 and I started on chapter 12, didn't I? Which was 168, so I have read less than 100 pages for this one due to the speed of my audiobook. 32 plus 55, 87 pages, so not too bad. I've had a good time with my puzzle. This is, though, the worst day of the experiment in terms of pages read, because obviously we've hit at least 100 pages every day. I think our smallest day was 102 or 104 pages up until yesterday, which was our best day with 135. This method for me is more about entertaining myself while I do a puzzle as opposed to trying to focus and read a book. So I didn't think, especially because I'm listening on 1.5 times speed, that this would be the most successful day of the experiment, but it was nice to actually do some of my jigsaw whilst also getting through a little bit of my book. And like I said, I didn't read a lot, like I didn't have a lot of audiobook time in August, so it was nice to dedicate a couple of hours to making a little bit of progress in that book, because I'm pretty much just exclusively listening to it. Although at some point I might get my Kindle and listen to the audiobook while I read on my Kindle, like immersion read it, and see if that makes a difference, because I haven't tried to read any of Dungeon Crawler Call at all with my eyeballs, and I'm enjoying the series, but there's also things I'm not enjoying about it, and pretty much everybody else is giving all of the books 5 stars, so I feel like I'm missing out somewhere, because it's still like a 3 to 4 star series for me. But I just wanted to show you my puzzle and how much I got done. I think I did pretty well. I mainly did this door section, but I did most of the end pieces. I am missing one, which is probably in the box somewhere as well. So I think I probably have, in terms of audio, another 3 to 4 hours left, probably around 3, to finish this puzzle, which I will do sometime in the week. But this was obviously the last part of this challenge, so I'm going to take some time to count up how many pages we've read in total during this challenge, but also the amount of pages in total that I've read over the whole week, because obviously I've been reading little bits outside of this challenge. And over the last 2 weeks I've been posting like an Instagram carousel of like what I read last week, and I've already calculated like my total page counts for those 2 last weeks. So I guess what we'll do is we will compare how much I've read this week to how much I've read the last 2 weeks. I do think it is going to be significantly more, even though I thought in August I was having a really good reading month and I was reading a lot. I've already done my wrap up, and I know that it was actually my 3rd worst reading month of the year, which isn't a big deal, but I do think that the amount of pages that I've read this week is going to be significantly more than my weekly average, at least over the last months. But if I could maintain this, I feel like I am on to a new habit that's going to really help me, because I don't feel like reading has been difficult this week. And like I said, I feel like I've had time for other things as well. So it's time for us to review this week as a whole and talk about whether this challenge was a success or not. At this point, you guys will have already seen the running tally throughout the video of how many pages I have managed to read in our 2-hour sections, but at this point you have no idea how much I've read outside of them. I do want to say that it doesn't feel like I have spent a lot of time reading this week. This week was an interesting one because in hindsight I realized I didn't actually go anywhere. I didn't have any appointments, I didn't have anywhere I needed to be, I didn't have any social obligations. The only places that I went were like grocery shopping and also to the cafe, obviously for this challenge. So I would say that going into winter, this is a semi-typical week. Normally I have at least one thing going on, whether it's just a dentist appointment or whether I end up going into York for like a day out or something. So it isn't often that I have absolutely nothing going on, and I do feel like that contributed to how much time I was able to dedicate to reading even outside of these 2 hours. And what it also meant was that the 2 hours did not feel like a chore at all. But the amount that I read this week just during our challenge was 776 pages, which seems like an okay number. It doesn't seem like an overwhelming amount, but it also is a little bit more than I do sometimes read because, as I mentioned, I have been tracking my reading over the last 2 weeks for Instagram, and I didn't end up being organized enough to post my how much did I read this week for last week, but I have crunched the numbers for you guys. And last week, when I thought that I was doing like relatively okay with how much I read 863 pages in total. And for the week before, which was the week that I actually did post, once again, thought I was doing relatively well this week, but I do think that this is a pretty low number for me, as I read 587 pages, which is less than 100 pages per day, and that is my like standard / minimum of how much I like to read. So obviously reading just 2 hours a day and hitting 776 pages is great. It is pretty much an average, well, 1 page short of an average of 111 pages a day, because those numbers line up almost really perfectly, which I think is really good for a 2-hour reading session, considering there were breaks in there, and an average reading pace, I guess, depending on the book, depending on the reader, is like 1 page per minute. But the total amount that I read for the entire week is actually significantly more than that, because this week, and I have actually made the Instagram post for this week, I was doing it this morning, so I can tell you for sure how much I've read, and it is 1,223 pages. So to put this into perspective, I thought I had a good reading month in August. Turns out it wasn't, and I got a reality check when I filmed my wrap up, but I read like 3,000 pages across all of August. If there's 4 weeks in a month, which there is like on average, and I read 1,200 pages every week, I would read 4,800 pages in a month, and just let us see if I have beaten that at all this year. My best reading month is 4,979 pages, and my second best is 4,768, and I have only ever read 5,000 pages once in my entire life in a month, and that was last year. So if I were to repeat this every single week and read the same amount, I would be excelling my monthly page average, my weekly page average, significantly. And obviously this counts an extra 500 or so pages that I've read outside of this challenge, but I repeat, reading did not feel like a chore this week. It doesn't feel like I sacrificed everything else in my free time to read. I have watched like 6 episodes of Vanderpump Rules, a season which is like 2 hours of Jackson Brittany Take Kentucky or whatever that little side project was, as well as finishing season 5 of Vanderpump Rules. I've watched some Charmed, I've played some video games, I've done a lot of work as well. Like I've had some really productive work days. So I really do feel like the focus time that we had during this project was very successful, resulting in achieving the goal that I wanted for this video, which was freeing up some of my extra time to do things other than reading without feeling like I was falling behind or guilty because I should be reading. I had a Lorcana night with Curtis as well on Tuesday. Like I've done so much this week, obviously impacted by the fact that I had no obligations or social life outside of the house this week, but I consider that a win. I also completed a TBR in a regular weekly reading vlog kind of format for the first time in a very long time. I finished Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil, finished Prince of Thorns, I did DNF Shadow Kissed, and then I also read 100 or so pages of Dungeon Crawler Carl and made it, I haven't picked this up today actually, so this is an accurate amount of how much I've read this week, 200 pages of Lost in Focus by Lila Lee as well. It's weird because I only actually read 1 book in its entirety during the week, which was Prince of Thorns, because I'd already started Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soul. They are the only 2 books that I actually finished, and then everything else I've read part of, so I've read like across 5 different books. I feel like it feels a little less substantial because I have only finished 2, but I also think that having a bunch of books on the go and like mixing up mediums and actually mixing formats was a suggestion that I got. I think only 1 person suggested it, which I did think was a little odd because I thought that would be a little bit more popular, because I do know that if I'm struggling sometimes with a physical book, like maybe the text is really small and I switch to the ebook, that does help me to focus and read a little bit more. So I am blown away by how successful this challenge was. However, I do not think that it matters what I do in terms of like the techniques that we used, I don't think that any one of these was more successful than another. If we look at which ones, like which day I did the best during our 2-hour section, my best day was Saturday, and I read 134 pages. That was when I was in the bath and I was watching Olivia's sprints. However, I don't think reading in the bath or watching Olivia's sprints necessarily contributed to the amount that I read. I think it's because it's a contemporary romance with a very easy writing style, and so it's much faster to read. And that is, of course, paired with the fact that Olivia does tend to do really long sprints. So my first focus session within that 2 hours was 1 hour and 15 minutes, which of course helped. Then my worst day of the week was the one that immediately followed it, which was Sunday, which was the only day that I read less than 100 pages. However, as we said, that is because I'm listening to the audiobook more slowly, because I want to retain the information more. And if we're talking about methods for me personally to focus and to want to consume a large amount of a book or be absorbed in a book for a certain length of time, an audiobook with a hobby or with cleaning or with walking is not the way that I would achieve that. I would listen to an audiobook in conjunction with something else to either just be able to multitask, be able to make progress on my TBR while I do have to do things physically, or I would do it because I want to do an audiobook, but I also have things that I have to read. So it's not about focus for me. It's more about being able to consume things a little bit more efficiently or faster, which to me does feel very different. I'm not surprised that that was the technique that worked the least, but my overall takeaway from this video is that it is about intention, it is about mindset, it is about going into a reading session knowing what you want to achieve and committing yourself to reading in that session. 2 hours was just something that I felt, to be honest, I felt like having a 2-hour limit was a little bit much for me. I thought the 2 hours would just feel endless and drag on. I actually feel it was the perfect amount of time. Once again, reiterating, didn't have a lot going on outside of filming this vlog this week, which isn't super typical for me, although it can happen. But I do think that reading for 2 hours a day solidly is something that I want to integrate into my day more often, because what it did is it really just made me productive in other areas of my life. Like, instead of having to feel like I had to sit here and read for a significant amount of time in the morning, because if I don't get a certain amount of pages in the morning, I'm going to really struggle to get everything that I want to read in a day in the evening. I knew I was going to sit for 2 hours in the evening and read at least 100 pages. So instead of like sitting here kind of forcing myself to read, while in the back of my mind I'm like, okay, but you also need to do this and edit this and film this and post this and send this here, I just cracked on with my to-do list and I got my reading done in my little 2-hour section, and I felt like a superhero. My biggest takeaway is that I'm going to be intentional from now on. I'm going to be a little bit more disciplined in terms of like actually setting my phone aside, putting my Bean app on, which I'll show you my Beans room before this vlog ends, because we built it entirely in this vlog, and just reading however that happens. Now, I do think that going forward, what I'm going to be trying to implement is reducing distractions from my phone, noise cancelling headphones. I said at the beginning of this vlog, I don't want to wear headphones inside. I feel like the majority of my success in this video I can attribute to noise cancelling headphones. There was the day that I had the ambience room on, but that was, Curtis actually left the room after the first 10 minutes because he was clicking on his joysticks and it was really bothering me. So he left and like went to do something upstairs. And I think because everything else was quiet apart from Brie doing whatever it was she was doing for like a short portion of that, that's the only reason why that worked. Noise cancelling headphones to drown all of that sound out, like Brie chewing on her bone, Curtis playing his games, I think is going to be key for me, as well as listening to some sort of combination of if I like the audiobook, if I tolerate the audiobook, then immersion reading, or if not, then some sort of instrumental. I always have TPR to rely on if I can't think of anything else, but also like specific themed playlists, movie soundtracks, game soundtracks, whatever it is that kind of fits the mood. I do realize actually now that I didn't get to try brown noise during this vlog, so maybe that's something else I would like to try going forward. But I feel like I didn't feel the need to try brown noise because the instrumentals and the immersion reading was already working for me sufficiently. Before we round this vlog out, I want to show you my Bean room. I don't have much left to buy. I think I have like 3 things maybe that I need to purchase. I need wall decorations for the back wall behind the desk, a chair, and then a light above the desk. but this is how we're looking. I'm really proud. That is the rug that I needed to pay $1.99 for the monthly subscription for because I couldn't live without it. I think I made the right choice. So yeah, that brings us to the end of this vlog. Once again, thank you to Burger for sponsoring this one. And if you would like to get your hands on any cute cases or accessories this season, then please don't forget that you can click on the link at the top of my description box and use my code BeccaBumxx15 to get 15% off site-wide. Honestly, I am thrilled with how this project turned out. What we need to do now is see whether I can carry this into the future. I'm going back into Shelf It or Scrap It. I have at the time of filming this, I have 6.5 books to read for that vlog in the next 10 days because the 11th day is the day that I will be posting it. So we'll see if I keep up with these focus techniques and whether it helps me to get through that, because that is a lot of books, even given the amount that I read last week. That is still a lot to get through. And that will, of course, provided I manage to achieve that, be the next vlog that you see on my channel. So stay tuned if you are at all interested. I do hope you've enjoyed this vlog if you've made it this far, because it's also far longer than I anticipated it being. But if you did, please don't forget to like if you liked it and subscribe if you wanna. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you will go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.